Hey everybody, Caleb here. I think we're live. I think we're good to go. I think I'm on screen. um, we should be going. I think we're good. If I look over here, I think we're good. So, hey everybody, I'm here. We're live. I've got a Martin. It's been sitting on my desk for a little while now. Not crazy long, but I was gonna work on it. You can see the neck side of this one. The neck was loose on this one. This is a D28. I'm not sure I remember from what year, but this is an old Martin D28. And the neck came loose. So I pulled it yesterday, and I thought we'd work on a little bit cleaning it up and seeing where we are with that. Maybe we'll try even fitting it back in and see where it's at. But the action was bad on this thing. And it was like so close to being not that bad, but it was not great. But you could see the seam going up the side, so it was kind of obvious that there was something wrong there, and I needed to do something about it. So it came loose yesterday, pretty quick. Didn't take a whole lot of work. Interesting fact about this, I pulled 4 rattlesnake rattles out of the inside of this guitar. I've got them over in a Ziploc bag. 1 second, I'll go grab them. See, we got 4 rattlesnake rattles. They're nice and rattly. If you needed some maracas, we're about halfway there. But pulled those out of the inside of this guitar. It was, it's a little different. I know that there's guys that do that. They do it for like percussive reasons, but it's not exactly my cup of tea. Beyond that, you can probably see this thing's got a couple of cracks in it. I've done some looking on the inside of this already. I'll go ahead and put this in the overhead so you can kind of see what's going on a little bit better. It'll be that one. I've done some looking on the inside of here, and these cracks are really solid. The problem is they're not level. So if we have some extra time, I might work on that. It'd be nice to even those out, but I'd like to kind of get this cleaned up so I could start fitting it back in there sometime soon. I was just going to start with maybe either a scalpel or a chisel, cleaning that off, and take a second to look at some chat here. Old Hickory asked if that was the Caleb Mills Orchestra, and I assume you're talking about in the intro, and haha, no, that's royalty-free music I found on YouTube's resource for royalty-free music. But I'm starting by just taking some of this glue off of here. I'm basically just scraping it off. I'm trying to get it where you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm flinging white chunks of glue across here, and I'm just now noticing I think that's either a number 5 or an S on the dovetail right there. Which, speaking of stamps on this thing, the dovetail is stamped a couple different things. There's an actual stamp 28 because it's a D28. It's written in 28 up here. It's also written in 173, which matches the inside, and then it looks like it's chalked 553, and I have no idea what the 553 is. I don't really know how these all work all the time. Obviously 173 matches the body, which means these were meant to match up, but where the 553 came from, I don't know. The 173 also matches the serial number on the inside of the body. Is the last 3. The 553 is not. I don't know where that came from. Just another interesting thing. This neck came out really, really easy as far as steaming necks comes. I think it was loose, which is why we were having neck angle issues. And it's kind of funny how typically on nicer guitars you don't have as many neck angle issues, but they're a lot easier to remove the necks on. It's funny how that works. But Yeah, this one came out really easily. I didn't have to put a whole lot of steam in there, which is good because I don't like getting extra water in here if I don't have to. Old Hickory says pre-85 because of non-adjustable truss rod, and that would be correct. There's no adjuster on the head, and you can actually see it in the back, the square rod. Speaking of taking this thing off of here, when I was removing the fretboard extension from the top, I was using my usual tool and heating up the fretboard and working this tool underneath here. And now I need a new one of these. I bent this up on the last little push bad enough that it broke it. It's got a little crease that went ahead and broke across it, so I'm going to need a new palette knife because that's broke. Such is the risks of doing this, and I don't think it's going to do me any good to just break it off and round it over because it's not going to be long enough. But this guitar claimed my palette knife. Just taking a second to read the chat. David says, I don't know if I could watch for long, but it's great to see you. Well, you too, David. YouTube called me this in comments now. I don't know why. I used it as my alias once, and here it is stuck. Well, yeah, YouTube comment. Well, they're changing the way comments are working and the way you're getting attributed, because they're starting to do the like the @ function, like Twitter did. I don't know how it's working anymore, but I don't see it in the live chat. I just see names, but I know in comments it's now @ and then your username. Blackjack guitar. Hi, Caleb. Maybe 553 is May of 53. I don't think it's that old. I don't think that there's any way that it's that old. It doesn't look that old. Scrape and glue. Lots of fun. Places that I have a hard time reaching, I'll take a scalpel blade and just either scrape it or keep doing what I was doing. Just cutting it off. I'll see if I can't bring it in just a little bit more. That's a little bit better. But I thought we'd show off some things that I've been doing besides guitar work today. You might be able to tell, but I actually have a new shelf underneath my desk, underneath right here. It's where I keep some stuff. I didn't used to have this. This is the biggest thing I missed from having at Jerry's, was just a place, like a little drawer underneath, to put my stuff. So I got a place for my calipers so that it can't go missing now. A place for a pencil so it can't go missing now. Because that's my biggest problem with working, is when I need something, I can never find it. I go to look for a pencil and I can never find a pencil. But now that I'm live streaming, my mouse and my keyboard fit underneath there in that little shelf, so they don't have to sit on my desk. Huge, huge, huge improvement. Very much enjoyed that. The other thing that I've been having good luck with is I just recently got a new phone number, the business phone number, which will actually lead you to exactly where I am sitting. The microphone I'm using to live stream is the microphone that I will answer the phone on. That is, if I'm awake. I've gotten in a really bad habit of having a terrible work schedule where I'm working really late at night and not during the work day, so when people call, I may not be awake. There's some glue in here on the back. I'm trying to knock off. taking some work, but it's coming off of there. The funny thing is, so I haven't done a whole lot of work to this side of the dovetail yet. And you can see where it's dry compared to where it's kind of got that darker color, which to me says that's where the glue was. So I don't think there was like that much glue covering the actual joint here. I think it was just barely doing anything, which is why this thing came loose. And then suddenly we had a bad neck angle. Ah, Randy's here. This is his guitar. It says 1976. But I was really thinking this thing was loose. There's a certain amount of look that the neck joints have to them. There's a certain way they look that, you know, it looks tight or it doesn't. And you can kind of see where it's starting to come loose when they're not real tight on the neck joint, on the body side. Like it's maybe moved a little bit. And there's been a few of the ones I've worked on recently have been that way. It's kind of funny that, you know, neck resets are not a fun activity. We don't like to just do neck resets. But I think it's partially because of YouTube that a lot of people are realizing either A, oh, I don't need a neck reset. That's not what I need. Or B, yeah, a neck reset is definitely what this needs because all the other problems aren't a problem. And that was this one. And even the last couple of guilds that I pulled the necks on. One thing or another, the neck joint was the issue. Either the angle was bad or the neck had come loose. And that was... So the last guild I pulled the neck on, the angle was bad. But the guild before that, I think it was loose. I've got another guild upstairs waiting for me to start on it. Which I meant to email a customer back that I did in fact receive it, and I haven't done that yet. Been distracted. But a guild from Louisiana, and I don't exactly remember what's wrong with it, but I do believe it's something in the same vein of it's hard to play. Somewhere along the way, I became a big proponent of working on guild guitars. It just happened to be that I worked on a lot of guilds in the last year or so. Alright, we're just about done cleaning that glue out of there. I am going to try and knock off all of this junk. The funny thing is, I tuned this up a little bit to about a whole step down before I started taking this apart, and I was not very surprised, but you know, like pleasantly reassured that it sounded like a Martin should. So I think you get this thing playing good, and this thing is going to sound really, really good. You know, because I only had it tuned a half step or a whole step down, and I was pushing pretty hard to get them strings down because the action was a little high, but it sounds like a Martin should. Try to get this out here so it's a little more centered. Just scraping this old glue and junk off the back of the fretboard extension. There's not a lot I can't do with just this chisel in regards to taking off glue. had a sanding block around here somewhere, and I don't know what I did with it. I was thinking it might be time to try and flatten this back out. Yeah, let me see if I can't find a flat block for that. When in doubt, go bring all the wood bits over. Let's see here. Zjoka says, please, I like the live repair videos, especially on a Martin, but please no chisel accidents on Livestream. That is a big goal of mine. Let's not have any chisel accidents live. That would be a little bit of a mess. Was it the last guitar I pulled the neck on? Wasn't it? I think so. I was trying to unstick something and I shoved this into my palm, and it hurt pretty good. Shoved it right in the base there, on video. But it's, you know, you just go, ow, that kind of hurt, and then you stop filming and then you go find a Band-Aid and something to make it stop bleeding. But yeah, no, the accidents happen every once in a while, usually when you're in a rush. Randy says he has faith. Well, thank you, Randy. I looked up why folks put rattlesnake rattles in their guitar. It was believed it would help with the tone and moisture. Good conversation piece regardless. Well, that's the truth. I've been telling all of my friends that I pulled 4 rattlesnake rattles out of a guitar, and it's been quite the conversation piece. I've seen them put them in like the headstock, like in the strings up here, and I always thought it was a tone thing, but I have seen that done, but I've never really seen them do them in the guitar until this one. So I'm just taking this flat block and some sandpaper, and I'm just making sure that this fretboard extension is cleaned off. And it should be fairly good. I may just take the corner here and do the joints, the dovetail part. Blackjack Guitar says instant tambourine. Yeah, or a snare drum. If you need just a little bit of snare, you got them rattlesnakes in there. That'll do it. I actually told a friend of mine who plays drums that he needed them on his snares to help out that just little bit of extra. Alright, that's looking good. I'm just noticing more and more little bits of glue I don't really want sticking around. I just want to take that old glue off. I don't want to take any wood off if I don't have to, but I want all of that old glue gone. And then when we think we're done with this side has got glue in it as well. The whole back side of this is glossy. The other thing I wanted to kind of show, and I'll see if I can see it here. We'll go this way. There. So you can see it's numbered 173. It's also the same last 3 as the serial. It's got a ton of holes in it, and I don't know why. Did they hang it from there when they were spray and finish? Did they hang it there to dry at some point? I don't know, but it's got a ton of holes in it. But then you can also see that back is totally glossy, which I don't know what the deal with that is either. It's got to be something in the way they were made. It's very smooth, but it's glossy. It makes a nice ripping sound when you get that glue coming off of there. You just basically shearing it right off. JJ said another reason people put rattles in their instruments is to deter mice. Having pulled the leftovers of a mouse out of a guitar before, I would say maybe that's not a bad idea. I can't imagine most of the time that's a problem, but there was that old 0015 from like 45 that I pulled apart at Jerry's, and I'm pretty sure that had most of the remains of a mouse in there. It was not the most pleasant experience scraping off dried mouse parts, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And it was stuck about here on the back, and it was just a huge spot. It was definitely put some gloves on moment, and I used mostly like a razor blade and just scraped the wood until it was clean. That was memorable, very memorable. It's looking really good, or it's starting to. JJ said at least they were dried. I would generally agree with that statement. I don't know that you'd really want to stick your hand in there and feel something soft. There's a puddle of glue right here at the base. See if I can't get it with a smaller chisel. That's working a little bit better. Come on. Yeah, it's still in there. There's quite a bit of a puddle there. I have a Christian from Denmark joining us. We've got quite the international audience this afternoon. Well, this afternoon for me. It's probably this evening for some others. That's generally why I like to stream at the time that I do. It's a good time for most people, domestic for me, to be getting off of work and have time to catch at least part of it, but it's also try to be early enough in the evening that we get some time for the not my domestics to get a little bit of it too. Alright, we got more marker on the inside here. Let's see if I can't show it. Right here. There's some more. I'm not sure what that one used to say at all. It might have been a 5. It might have been an F. It might have been an E. I really can't tell. I'm going to keep working at that. See what we got. Andrew from the UK says it's 9:30 here, and it's 10:25 in Belgium. Yeah. See, 10:25 would be the perfect time for me. Oh, yeah, I'm starting to uncover more of whatever this is. Is it an E? I think it's an E. I think you can see it there. What does the E stand for? I don't know. Somebody put that in there, and it made sense for what it was. It was either, you know, it came off of the E line, or maybe Mr. E inspected it, or it made sense whenever it was written in there. But now, I don't know how you would check. I don't know how you would know what all these things mean that don't match the rest of the numbers. I'm going to work on the top here a little bit. I don't want to take any wood off of here, and it's really easy to do that with that soft wood. Just trying to very lightly scrape that without taking anything off. Yeah, I don't like that. I could go the sandpaper route. I just got to be more careful not to hit the finish. This isn't working too bad, actually. It's coming off of there. Well, I've been working on this. Something else that I did recently. I know this probably doesn't matter to most of my audience, but it's just about time to go back to school. Not for me so much, but my cousin who lives here with me is going to college for his first semester starting a week from Monday. So we're kind of getting ramped up to do that. He had to go buy a computer for school, and the one he bought is a really nice computer. It just got a little bit warm, and we were a little worried about if it's sitting on like a soft surface, you know, like I have a table with carpet on it, you really wouldn't want to leave it on there. But we made a stand for it. I wanted to show it off. This was a build in a day sort of thing. Little oak laptop stand. Just made this thing, measured the laptop and put this thing together. I made one of these at Jerry's for my MacBook. When I was editing video, it sounded like an airplane taking off. So it needed a little bit more airflow underneath it. So that's basically what this serves the purpose of. And you see it fits on there, and actually I was telling my cousin that it almost looks too good for me. It looks like, you know, it fits a little too perfect. You'd think that I didn't do it. But it actually turned out really good. You know, a little laptop stand helped get some airflow underneath this thing. Just a little piece of oak we got at the hardware store. Something else we did this week, besides working on instruments, thought I'd share it off. Steven says, "Hey Caleb, it's been a while since I've caught you live. I just finished working on a friend's Epiphone. His neck block had come unglued from the top, and the strings were at 9mm at the 12th. I got them to 3mm. There's like a major portion of my audience who's not going to like me, but I don't know how big 9mm is. Really high. Okay, that's a huge improvement. Those that neck block coming loose from the top is pain. See, here's the problem. We're talking about metric conversions. Is I've gotten so used to doing the thousandths of an inch measurements, the U.S. system, and I can do it in my brain. There's a couple of friends of mine who have worked in like metalworking at this point, and everything is in thousandths of an inch in the U.S. So if we're talking about measurements, I can imagine 1,000 or 100 thousandths of an inch in my brain fairly easily, but I can't do the metric stuff because I'm a dumb American and I wasn't taught it until 9th grade, and then I've never used it since. But it's gotten to the point in which I have a hard time with fractional U.S. measurements. We do drill bits in an 1/8 inch, a 1/16 inch, a 1/4 inch. But if it's not an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch, I have a hard time imagining it in my mind because I don't use it. That's not the form of measurement I use. Andrew Whiteman says, love trying to decipher the codes left by builders. Are there any marks inside the guitar body? Yes, I agree with you. It's fun trying to figure out what they mean or what they ever meant. I didn't see any markings inside the body besides the stamp that's on the center brace, the Nazareth one. I hadn't seen any, and when I looked inside with the mirror and the camera, I didn't see anything in there either. Most of the marks that I've seen have just been in this neck area. So I'm just trying to finish this off. I'm not real totally happy with it yet. I'm going to try the sandpaper, I guess. David says, I'm good at converting weight and distance or speed. I do a bit of racing and watch some racing. A lot of that's in metric because I don't watch NASCAR. Yeah, that makes sense. The Brits are pretty good at it because they do some things in one and some things in the other. Because, like, as far as I understand, you have street signs or road signs that could be in either one, but it's still miles per gallon. But that may not necessarily be what the gas station says. Gallons. I give them a lot of credit. They're very good at conversions. But, unless you do it, you're not going to know it. Steven's talking about a conversion rate about 40 thousandths of an inch, right, for 1 millimeter, and that would be a good thing to remember. And I remember Jerry saying that a lot, but it has never stuck, and it might this time, but I don't know. It might not. David said, I'm talking about the Brits, still measure people in stone. Also, the imperial gallon is different than the U.S. gallon. I did know that the gallon, even though it's like, because they measure fuel consumption in miles per gallon, but the gallon isn't the same. Just enough that, my extensive knowledge of British measurement all comes from Top Gear. so not much. All right, that's looking better. I think we'll try just a little bit of this. All right, that's not bad. I almost want to see where we're at. I just want to fit this thing in here and see where it is. Where is my straight edge? I don't know. But if I clamp this in here, it drops pretty much all the way in there. Let me go find my straight edge. I'll be right back. Didn't have to go very far. Find a clamp that's got soft jaws. And maybe just a little bit of leather, so it doesn't slide around. All right. We come up here. Getting this under here is always a joy. Okay. Andy Whiteman, and I think he said he was from the UK. He says, we use a term that best figure the fits. So basically, if it fits better, that's what he wants to use. And I would have to agree with that. Except for, I use what I know, and that's about it. Yeah, we're still low. We're still running into that bridge. And it seems to be seated properly. We're still running that bridge by a lot. It's only about a 16th under the bridge. So we got to come up at least a 16th for the bridge, and then a little less than an 1/8 for actually getting a good angle on this thing. Just making sure we're pressed in there properly. Maybe the clamp doesn't slide off. It seems to be seated properly. Okay. So, if we're going to be there, I got to get this thing out of here. And sometimes that's easier said than done. There we go. I suppose, since we're all cleaned out here, I am going to start taking a little bit of angle off of this thing. Probably going to do it the same way I always do it. When I'm doing these, I typically like to just take about 25 thousandths off. That's about 1/2 millimeter. I think. And I'm just going to, so I basically marked up 25 thou. And I'm just going to scratch that across the back. That's usually what helps me get started. I'll do a little bit on the side as well so I can keep it in tow. Basically keeping everything the same here. That's looking good. It's a little hard to see while I'm doing this. But yeah, something like that. So I've marked 25 thousandths all the way around the heel, and I'll take that up to nothing. I'll start working on that. I'm going to grab a different chisel because I think those are going to be a little dull. just working this off. What do we got here? Steven talking about his friend's Epiphone. I stuck some glue underneath the top with a toothpick when I glued up that Epiphone neck block. It's a bolt-on 2 cardstock shims underneath the heel. My friend's gonna love it. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be a huge improvement. Yeah, those bolt-ons can be a little finicky. I'm trying to remember. Didn't Jerry and I do German Hofner, where the neck block came loose? I don't remember which guitar it was. Was it that? Was it stuck on? It was glued on, wasn't it? Somebody glued in that bolt on. Jerry and I were working on. I don't remember what the guitar was, but I remember the title was Caleb and Jerry Wrestle a German. Because I was really proud of that title. That was good. But yeah, I think we did that where it was a bolt-on acoustic guitar, but somebody had glued it in and the neck angle was bad. Speaking of Jerry Deschant asks if I ever go visit Jerry. I haven't got the time, honestly. If something's going on, I'll go see Jerry. He played something this May, maybe the last May, maybe it was this May. He played an event that was a little closer for me, and I went and saw him play, but I haven't seen him a whole lot. Or maybe it was last fall. I can't remember. I want to say it was last fall, but I don't really remember. So yeah, not really, but it's just more of a time issue, and I know he's busy. He's always busy doing something. He was running something new today. I saw that. Jerry Decant. Okay, I got it right this time. Talking about being a NOAA ham radio operator. I got an uncle who could probably do that. I mean, he could probably enjoy doing that. He's not anywhere near educated enough to do that, but he enjoys running his CB. He's always driven trucks, and he's a big radio guy. The nice thing about having a chisel here is if I want to make sure that everything is straight, I got a straight line right here. I'll start working on the side here. This can be one of the slowest processes right here, just trying to make the neck angle fit better and keeping it straight. Keeping an eye on chat. Nothing new as of looking, but as soon as I say that, there's going to be something. And if I've missed something, put it again, and I'll try to get back to it. I'm still picking glue off of here. Give me the little one. How long have we been going now? We're going, about an hour, 55 minutes. I guess a little under that because I forget about the 10 minutes at the start, so about 45 minutes. running stuff into each other. David says he likes the sandpaper method that Ted does. Ted usually only, at least if we're talking about the same one, he does on the cheaper instruments where he cuts the back and then he works it down and it sands more off here than here. He usually only does that on the cheaper instruments. I've seen him do it and it's good for a quick fix. And he's pretty much the only person I've seen do that. If we're talking about the same method. That's one of those things that the thing that Ted does that's the cheaper thing, where he'll basically take a thin saw, and while this is still attached to this, he'll just cut it down, and then he'll take some sandpaper and work it in, and that way it sands more off of the bottom of the heel than nothing at the top. That way the neck angle is increased. That is one of those things that if you don't know a whole lot about, vintage instruments or trying to keep things in really good shape, you get a lot of, oh, that's what I need. People going, oh, that's what I need on my 1959 Martin, 1962 Martin, 1945 Gibson, and he's going to say, I don't really want to do that to that guitar. If we're going to do that right, we're going to pull it. Randy says, I got to head out. I'll watch the replay later. Look forward to heading up to bring it home. Yep, it's shouldn't be too far off, but still got a little bit of work ahead of us. I'll see you later, Randy. Trying to get in here without punching myself in the hand with a little chisel. Don't need one to match on the other hand. Come on, get in there. This is definitely one of the slower processes, so I'm going to be doing this for a little while. So I guess it's a good thing we're live. You all get to watch me go real slow. David says, that sounds like him. I'm talking about Ted again. Though I've seen him do some pretty pricey guitars, yeah. I know that, like, when people can't afford it too much, yeah. Robert asks, is that a gloss neck or a polished through use? I think it's a gloss neck. I'm fairly certain it's a gloss neck. You can actually see here on about, here where it's been worn through. That is definitely somebody's thumb. I noticed that while I was playing, my thumb sat right there. But no, it's a gloss neck. It's got a little bit of wear in it. There's a couple of dots. I don't know how you can see them. I'm not exactly sure where that came from. I'm sure it was from sitting and leaning on stuff. But there's a couple of dots on there. Dents in the finish. But yeah, it's gloss. And it's just been kept glossy through hand usage. Beyond that, there's a couple of fingernail grooves and these frets are getting a little worn. Old Hickory says capo. I don't think so because it's right in the middle. It's right after the first fret. It's right where my thumb sat doing a G chord. Or rolling around for that F sharp and the D. Oh, you're saying the round spots. That's, yeah, no, that could be. I don't know. I've never seen it do that. Is that the, oh, that's one of the old stretcher ones, isn't it? The one where it's got the stretch and it's got the holes in it. I bet that's what that is. I'm not sure how well that described what I'm talking about, but there was those, it had the piece of kind of stretchy cloth that went around it, and it had a couple of dots in it depending on how wide the neck was. And I bet that's what got pressed into the back from the capo. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. I'm still not sure if that was well described as to what capo I'm talking about, and I don't have one to show, but Old Hickory said that guitar was made the year I was born, and the capos have improved much since then. I would have to agree. I have one that comes around like this, and it's got a little arm that locks in, and then it's got a tension screw on the back so it pulls it down. I'm not a huge fan of that one. I much prefer the spring ones. I will admit that they have their issues when they're not on the right spot, or they like to buzz sometimes, but I do much prefer this. This just grab the string where I want it, not have to sit here and attach an extra instrument. David G says someone played a lot of cowboy chords. I imagine so, but you know what makes cowboy chords sound the best? Martin guitars. A good one, at least. Still picking glue out of here. I'm gonna keep working on it. Patrick's talking about cutting himself with a chisel. Yeah, I generally try to watch it, and it's always hard to show on camera, because if I'm like this and I'm working here, you don't get a good measurement of where my fingers are in relation to the height of this neck, because this would not be good, but this is entirely out of the way if I'm working over. It's always hard to show on camera where my fingers are, depth-wise. But yes, no, I'm sure I've done a couple of things already that made people squirm a little bit. Gotta move this thing. Trying to cut all that glue out of there still. It's funny, the unnecessary amount of glue that is on the back compared to what is on the actual dovetail itself. There's a lot more glue on the outside than there was actually on the joint. David says the capo's been around since the 1700s. There are a lot of designs throughout history. You can search them if you want. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the spring, and that's that's where I'm at. I gotta move my keyboard. It's in my way. Take me back to this one. Come on. That's looking good. It's coming out. I Got so much glue in here. Steven asked how I got started doing this. Well, where would you like me to start? The first time I started doing guitar work, or how I got interested in doing guitar work? Or how I got interested in guitar? I guess to fill time, I'll start at the beginning. My senior year of high school, or going into my senior year of high school, which would have been 2017, so like early or mid-summer 2017, I started playing guitar just for something to do. And then senior year of high school, I took more college classes than I was high school classes. So they were dual credit, so I got credit for both high school and college. But they were all online, and you got a week's worth of work for one day, basically. So Monday through Friday, I had just everything to turn in on Friday. So I had Monday through Thursday to work on it. And instead of working on it, we did nothing but play guitar. Troy and I, Troy's been on the channel, in case you've missed him, we built his guitar. We did nothing but play guitar that entire year. It was play guitar Monday through Thursday and rush to get college work done on Friday. And it was about that time I started watching Jerry, I think. Because I bought a mandolin senior year too, and just started kind of picking around on it. And I would not be as good as I was if we hadn't spent all that time doing it. But I started watching Jerry, and then I started getting interested in doing some of this stuff. And a lot of it was, if I'm going to buy cheap instruments, I need to be able to make them play better. And I can't afford to take them anywhere, because I can't afford nice instruments. So why could I afford to take it in and get work done on it? So there was I just wanted to learn how to do it. And then after high school, I did 2 years of college. It was community college, and I had 2 separate semesters of playing guitar. And that was a huge help. That was probably the best I ever was at guitar, was during that. And towards the end of my second semester, we had the pandemic, and we all went home from spring break and never went back because everything went all online. And it was about that time that Jerry put out the video looking for an apprentice. And it was like everything just lined up all at once. I was at home with nothing to do, and my associate's degree was basically done. And so I applied for Jerry online, and I'm trying to remember, he called me on a Saturday. I think I met him on the Monday after, and then it was like, I'll start next Monday. And then I started the next Monday, and it's on video. It's on Jerry's channel. I guess that's the rest is history, but it's the rest is YouTube. I don't know that there's anything that I've done that's not on YouTube. It's like 99% of everything I've done, instrument-wise, is out there, one way or another. There is so much glue in this thing. Old Hickory asked, did I make an audition video? I did, because Jerry was, when he asked for applications, he asked for video applications. And so it was not an unfamiliar thing to me to be behind a camera necessarily. And I guess not so much that, but to be making videos. There were a couple projects in high school we did where I was making videos. Some of the other guys who were involved in that will know exactly what I'm talking about and think it's hilarious, but there were a couple things we did where we were making videos, and so I wasn't like it wasn't a totally foreign concept to me. So yeah, I made it was just an application just saying what I did, and where I was in school and what I was interested in doing. And it just so happened to be that Jerry was only 3 hours away, so 3.5 hours away. It's a little ways. And then I emailed it to him, and it was a little while before he got back, maybe a week or two. What was funny was at the time, I didn't really tell a whole lot of people from home that I was applying, because it was like, oh, I'm applying to some YouTube channel. It probably won't happen. And then all of a sudden it was, I met him on that Monday, and it was like, when can you start? And I was like, well, I may as well start Monday. And I moved down there that next week. So it was like, all of a sudden it's, oh, I got a week. I'm leaving. Tell everybody goodbye. And I was down there for a little less than 2 years. It was a year and 8 months or something like that. David says, well, at least you have a good documentation for when you're old and gray. You can look back on your body of work. Yeah, documentation is true. And I think that's part of the reason people like me or Jerry or even Ted working on their instruments, is because you take your instrument in to get worked on, and this is something that you usually have an emotional attachment to, and they disappear into the back with it. And when you come to pick it up and they say it's done. But when it's people like us, you get to see it happening and some of the thought process behind this, that, or the other. Mike asked, does Jerry refer others for repairs since he's retired? So I'm not sure I've got to talk about Jerry's retirement a whole lot. He didn't really talk to me a whole lot about it because it's his business. But there was a video like a day or two before he announced he was retiring, and he said something about his hands hurting. And I've been around him enough to I know that his hands probably woke him up from sleep. They were hurting that bad that he woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep because his hands hurt so bad. And at that moment I was like, I bet he's gonna retire. I just got a feeling that he's gonna retire. And it was like the next day or two that he put out that video that it was like, and I'm gonna retire from working on instruments. And I think I could just tell. He is choosing sleep over working on instruments, which I cannot blame the man. He'll do anything, he'll try anything to get his hands to hurt a little bit less, and to rein back the work as much as he can is what he's going to have to do. But Jerry does refer me work. So it was that he put out that video saying he was going to retire, and then that was probably a Friday, probably a live stream on Friday. Like Monday or Tuesday, I just got 4 or 5 emails from him. And they were forwards from customers of his that he was saying, hey, I'm retiring. This is the guy I taught. I'm referring you to him. Sorry. Maybe he'll be able to help you. And it was just like bang, 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 bang. Started getting them in a row. And they were kind of out of the blue. It really kind of surprised me. But yes, Jerry does refer most people to me when they come to him. That's where this one came from, I'm pretty sure. Which is why he was local. Local-ish. He's probably closer to Jerry than he is me, but yes, he does. David asked, did Jerry ever tell you why he selected you out of the other applicants? Not particularly. We didn't really talk about it a whole lot. There weren't a whole lot of other applicants, if I remember correctly. Proximity was part of it, I think. I don't know. I don't like to talk about things that aren't real relevant to the instrument work or the channel or anything, but I do think that sometimes things happen because that's just there was a lot of happenstance to get me there, and it does kind of feel like maybe that was just what was supposed to happen. But anyway, Steven says, nice, I have a friend who I met on YouTube who plays many instruments, mandolin included. If you get a chance, check him out. Okay, by Center for fourth album Opus. David says, I used to do most of my own work from setup to making my own salads and nuts. I bought and used a lot of gear and was a poor college kid. I never did a neck reset, but I did have to put a bridge back on. Yeah, well, that was like, let's see, what did I do before Jerry's? It wasn't mostly acoustic work before Jerry's of what I had done. You may have seen the gas cans in some videos, the gas can guitars that Troy and I built, and they're kind of less than functional instruments. They work. If you plug them in, they work, but they're electric, and you know it's a lot of pre-built parts. But it wasn't a whole lot of acoustic instruments, and then suddenly it was Jerry's, and it was all acoustic instruments. And now I prefer working on acoustic instruments. For Jerry, it was a bluegrass thing because that's what he was into, so that's what he worked on. But I prefer working on them just because. Old Hickory says, I'm sure you being an Eagle Scout helped out too. I don't doubt that. Jerry's a very sensible person, and he likes people who probably think a little more sensibly like him. Jerry is very, very solid in his moral values. You could always guarantee he'd never try to cheat somebody, and I think he probably was looking for somebody like that. And Eagle Scout probably helped say that a little bit. But I don't know that I said that in my application. That may have been said afterwards. I don't remember. I tend to forget that and leave it out of applications a lot. It's just something that slips my mind. David said you learned a lot in those slightly less than 2 years of being an apprentice. Well, when you were there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or even just 5 days a week, because there were days where, especially when we were working on Troy's guitar, Troy'd come down on a Friday, so I'd work 8 to 4:30 on Friday. Troy and I would go get dinner. We'd come back, start about 7, and then work till 2 or 3 in the morning. So it was an 8 to 3 in the morning day of working on guitars. There was a lot of guitars going on. There's a lot of instruments going on all the time. It was a high volume and stuff moved really fast, and we did a lot. And me and Jerry did a lot, helping him out with building guitars, and we did a lot. It wasn't just a regular job, definitely. It was very involved. And then there was all the stuff that I did that wasn't instrument work, like video editing and learning to make a thumbnail and learning how to live stream. Stuff like that. Stuff that not what you think of when you think of luthier. David asked when I'm going to start building my own guitars for sale. When I have a table saw that works. Is the most apt description. I have a table saw. It's kind of in storage because I don't have room for it. So once I have room for it, and I have room to use it, then that's when I'll start doing it. And not that I need a table saw to build a guitar, but that will mean that I actually have room to do things. Because right now I'm working in a tiny little room attached to the basement with no cell reception and no room to put a second guitar, really. Very rarely can I get started on something else besides the one I'm working on because I just don't have the room. So that's kind of the idea. I also still need to finish building my first one, acoustic guitar. which everybody tells me that I need to, but building my own guitar doesn't pay the bills. So here we are. Steven says, I do my guitars in the kitchen on an ironing board. Well, if you drop a guitar off in person, we do it on the dining room table. So, we got a high-class business going on here. Mike Soba asked what my associate's degree in college was. It was just a associate of the arts. It's just a transfer degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was through a program, so my community college was mostly paid for by the state. It's the A+. It's in Missouri. It's not in every state, I know, but so it was basically free associate's degree or a very cheap one, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so it's just a general transfer degree. David says, I have a lovely wood shop complete with a CNC router that I bought cheap and don't actually know how to use. If you're ever in Maine, I'll give you full access. Well, sounds like I need to start planning a trip to Maine. I don't know about you. But there's the other thing we were talking about. Stuff that I learned at Jerry's that is not what you think of when you think luthier. Like running the laser cutter or using the 3D printer. There's just because Jerry had them, so I learned how to use them, and I really enjoyed using them, and I really miss them, and now I'm looking at maybe getting one or both for myself, because the other day I had a pencil, and I'm looking around trying to clean up the shop, and I'm like, where am I going to put this pencil? And then the thought occurred to me, if I had a 3D printer, that would solve that issue. I could make tool storage for stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else. And so, that's gotten me back on the maybe I need a 3D printer kick. So we'll think about that one. And I have a friend who has a degree in CAD design, I think. Something like that. So for CNC routing and that sort of thing, he designs them on the computer, he draws it all up, or I think he did at some point. That may not be what it is. And now I'm going to feel really bad that I got it wrong. But that's something that I'd like to learn how to do too, and I have lots of resources available to me to learn how to do it. But Upcast Animal, that's my friend Josh. He says, I'll go halvesies if we can share it. I think you're jumping in a little deeper than you're expecting there, Josh. How's this looking? We still straight? Doing pretty good. I'm not quite where I need to be. David says, as someone who spent a great deal of time in academia and never underestimate a liberal arts general studies degree. Yeah, we talked about college a couple of times. Running the own business, it probably makes sense to probably go back and finish something, a 4-year. But I don't know. If I'm paying for it, it's going to be a slow way, and I'm not motivated to do it again. So college these days is not what it used to be. But he says, you're welcome anytime. I even have a spare room with a guitar collection. And thank you, David. Steven's talking about doing CAD work. That was probably... So, I know that it's very, very fundamental what I have done for the 3D printer that Jerry has, because it's computer-aided design. Just drawing that stuff up, but that's way off into left field when you think about luthier work. And it's very rarely did it come up that it was like, oh, this can make me the exact tool that I need. But it was more like, this can help make a tool a little bit better a lot of the time. Mike asked if I would be interested in making the antler saddles and nuts for instruments. I'm not disinterested in it. I know somebody emailed me, one of the Patreons emailed me not too long ago and asked if I knew somebody who made them or if I made them. And right now I don't. And Jerry offered it to me several months ago now. And I really couldn't afford to pay him outright for it, what it was worth. You know, it's well lucrative business. It's how Jerry got started. But we haven't really talked about it a whole lot since. And I guess Jerry has stopped for a little while because of how far behind he is, which sounds about right. Those things will continue to sell the lean at a time, but I'm not disinterested in doing it, but I don't have the setup to do it right now. Jerry does it. He uses his full-size bandsaw and a full-size drill press, and I don't have either of those things set up. Don't have the room for them. How are we working here? We're doing pretty good. Pretty good. David said something about meeting all sorts of people online. Yes. It's so abnormal to meet people in real life, especially nowadays. Well, and talk about how weird this is. Just my demographic for YouTube is not a demographic I am in. And it's always odd to think about how much experience is in my demographic compared to most people my age who would be doing this. Because there's vastly more in my demographic. I think I talked about this the last time we were live, that my demographic is significantly older than I am. And most of that is Jerry's doing. I've about said Jerry's fault, but it's not a bad thing. But he just developed an older demographic. David and Mike are both talking about the shop that's supposed to be happening. Unfortunately, that falls under building a shop doesn't pay the bills, so here we are. Things I'd like to be doing, but I can't really afford to not be in here working on instruments. And I can't afford to pay somebody else to go out there and do it. Yeah, it's supposed to be happening, and it probably still will, but stuff's expensive. And that's where we're at. It's looking pretty good. I'll switch out chisels. David says, when you have the time, you don't have the money. When you have the money, you don't have the time. That is very accurate. And sometimes just some other things take precedent. That's like, I've had several people tell me personally that, oh, when are you going to finish your guitar, your acoustic guitar, the one that I've been building for far longer than I like to admit. And it's just, when I don't have any other anybody else's instrument to be doing, and I can afford to spend time on something that doesn't make me any money. When I have customer instruments in, I just feel like obligated to get them done because they're here. And whether or not, I don't know that I've ever had an instrument in that somebody's told me, I'm in a rush on this, or I'm not sure I've ever had an instrument in my hands that somebody didn't tell me, whenever you have the time, there's no rush. But that doesn't matter. Not to me, not very much. I mean, it's a feeling that I'm working on their instrument. They've granted me, like this one, for example. Randy was in the chat earlier. This is his guitar. This, I'm fairly certain, was his father's guitar. And he has trusted me with his father's guitar. So I feel a little obligated to respect his father's guitar and make it the best it can be. But Randy told me, no rush. You know, do it when I can. But it doesn't matter. I'm working on them. Of course, I like doing it. I like working on them. I like building them too, but I just haven't done it. Been a little while since I worked on this side. That's not going to work. Okay, come on. We're getting there. This thing is getting better. Check the straightness on that side. I haven't done anything with it, really. It's looking good. And so, on top of that, there's a couple of things I'd like to do. A couple of things that have been floating around in my mind. Projects that aren't like number one projects, but things I'd like to do. It just eats time. For example, April Fool's was one of those, and that ate a lot of time. That almost ate 2 weeks just in writing, prep, and recording. But I really enjoyed that video. That was a lot of fun. It's August, and I've already started thinking about Christmas. It's August, and I've already started thinking about next year. And there's a couple of build projects I'd like to do. Little things, not real difficult things, but little things that I think would just be fun to do. I just can't afford to stop doing instruments for customers. So that's what comes first. And we'll see what I do when I got the time. I haven't really talked about what I've been doing here a whole lot, but if you're ever doing this yourself and you're cutting this joint, make sure that you continue to cut it. You're not cutting out of the joint. Like this side, if I cut this way, I could just tear out a huge chunk right here, and then that finished side is never going to look as good as it does right now. So I'm trying to cut, you know, in continually so that I don't tear it up. Or just down. I don't really want to be working out because I'll tear that out, and that's not what we want. But we are looking good. Yeah, looking pretty good. Continuing to stay straight, and that's the hardest thing to do on these, is keep these lines straight. Because if you end up with a wavy line, you'll notice it when it meets back up to the guitar body. I still haven't hit my 25,000s mark, so I've taken off very little. I'm just doing it fairly slow to be cautious. And on top of that, talking doesn't help me none either. David says he's running out of topics to ask about. Well, you know, I'm running out of topics to talk about. That's why we've been quiet. It's been kind of nice. Yes. If I do anything with the scouts today, not really. It's a scheduling conflict thing. I am doing a very similar, I say job, volunteer thing. One of the guys I got my Eagle Scout with, there were 3 of us. Him and I are still volunteering, leading the youth group at the local church, one of the local churches. It's very enjoyable. I get a lot out of doing it. Him and I have done Scouts since basically always, you know, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. It was a thing that, you know, so somebody said the other day, you know, it's like, oh, you young guys doing this is really nice. And I said that, you know, we don't really know how to do nothing. We've always done something. Trying to read some comments here. Get this come off here. David says he's got a blueberry harvest starting next week. I have no idea what that would look like. We have blackberries. Josh says Maine's sounding awesome more and more. We're going for the blueberries. Going for the blueberry harvest. They grow on bushes, right? Is this something that you like have a lot of, or just like growing a bush or two? Josh says road trip. Sounds like we're going to Maine. Come on. For being mahogany, this thing is hard. David says, Maine is awesome, but the weather can be brutal. I actually like that about it. And yeah, I own a commercial blueberry operation. They get raked by hand, like a cranberry rake, kinda. Should they drop on their own then, I guess? Because as far as berry bushes go, we have blackberries, or some people grow strawberries, and both of those need picked. If you're going to get them before the bugs do. David says, mine are low bush wild blueberries. I have 400 acres of blueberries, but only 200 acres get harvested a year. You get about 5,000 pounds of berries per acre. That's a lot of blueberries. Josh says he's about to go down a blueberry harvesting rabbit hole. See, this is what I was talking about. There's a lot of experience in my demographic that most people wouldn't get. I don't know what other luthier channel you're going to watch where we're talking about blueberries. No, you pull them off the bushes. The rake is a tool with a metal tines that go under the bush and then get pulled upwards. Huh. So the rake pulls them just more than one at a time then. Mike Soba asked if I had always had the long hair, and did Jerry say anything when he first met you? I haven't always had the long hair. I only started growing. My last real haircut was about a week before high school graduation. So that's been 5.5 years ago. Something like that. Jerry didn't really say much about it. There's a clip that got cut of working on Troy's guitar where Jerry walks in and we were listening to some rock and roll music, some classic rock, I'm sure. And Jerry said something that I was not going to put on a video on YouTube, but it was very funny. And Hippie was involved anyway. That's pretty much the only, and he was joking, he was just joking around. He came in and we were listening to music and we were working on an electric guitar and he said something and it was very funny, but it did not make it into the video. But that's pretty much the only time Jerry ever said anything about long hair, because he was pretty much, if I was going to have it, I was going to deal with it myself. Talking about, like safety concerns and that sort of thing. And he recognized that I was going to deal with it if I had it. Josh said, come for the guitar work and stay for the blueberry talk. David said, many companies with a rake and a tractor attachment for the blueberries. A lot of berries come up at once. Okay, that makes sense. He likes employing people. Well, thank you, David, for employing people. A lot of Maine people out there raking blueberries, I imagine, on 400 acres of blueberries. That's a lot of land. It's all cattle out by us. It's either cattle, corn, or soybean. That's what you got. And most people got all three to some degree. Steven said, no, I want some blueberry pancakes. Pancake sounds pretty good. I could go for some pancakes. I'm a bit of a waffle guy myself. While we were working on Troy's guitar, speaking of breakfast food, and this is going off on a very odd story. While we were working on Troy's guitar at Jerry's, we would go to the Waffle House in Rolla for breakfast. The last time we went like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, or every other week for 4 to 5 weeks. The last time we went, we sat down. The lady came over with her little order pad, and she goes, the usual? And I just say, yep. And she got it spot on. And that was the last time we went because Troy had to go back to California. There's my one breakfast story from the Waffle House. John Washburn says, and a few chickens, talking about what's coming up around here. Yeah, that's a lot of people got chickens. People in town got chickens. Well, I say in town, town of 1,000, but they got chickens in town. Not much of a town for most people, but 2 days says long hair's a pain. I put it in a ponytail way too long to be easy anymore. Yeah, well, it stopped being easy a long time ago. I just kept on doing it anyway. I don't know what it was. When I was in college taking guitar class was when the bandana actually started, because I needed something to keep it out of my face, which is the sole purpose for it. Is it just keeps the hair out of my face. But my guitar teacher was all like, "Oh yeah, I like the bandana. You know, I was a hippie back in the day originally," and it was very funny to me because I was like, "Well, I just need something to keep it out of my face," and that's what I chose. But he was an original hippie, so he was all on board with that. But that's about the time the bandana started, was probably second semester of college, or in the second year maybe. My guess what Troy does in California. Well, Troy's not in California anymore. He's back home. But while he was in California, he was working with YWAM. They're kind of it's youth ministry something. He did some, it's kind of like a youth ministry or a young people's ministry. He was in Armenia as a missionary for 6 months or so. They do a lot of that. Troy was leading worship team for them for a while, so I'm not sure leading. He was on the worship team for a while doing outreach programs, and they would go to inner cities and they'd maybe do a little show, like they'd play a little while, and then they'd go out and then they'd just hand out food for people who needed it and try to keep track of people who were a little too inebriated and didn't need to be wandering around the city. They did a lot of good stuff, but Troy had his fill and decided it was time to come back. And so he's been back for a little while, maybe a little over a year. This thing's turning out pretty good. It's taking some time, but it's staying straight, and that's what matters the most. Do a quick check here. Okay, we're doing good. Still seeing glue on here. I'm just trying to get that off of there. Dang old glue. Lots of glue in all the wrong spots. John Washburn says his cousin did YWAM a couple of decades ago. Yeah, Troy did it. I don't exactly remember how he heard about it, but he did it for a while, and I think he really enjoyed all of the good parts about it. As a native Missourian, he liked the nature parts of California. They did lots of hiking out in Yosemite. But anytime the city was involved, he was ready to come home. Flying and just doing things in town was not his speed. California. So he was definitely ready to be at home, and he's done a lot of church work since he's been at home. He leads the worship team at the church now. So every Sunday they're up playing, and he leads that group. John Washburn says Youth with a Mission. That's right. That's what YWAM stands for. Mike says, I really enjoyed asking you questions while you're working on an instrument. Thanks for your time. Well, thanks for coming to watch and keeping me working on this instrument entertained. Because this can be a little slow. And it doesn't feel like I've gotten a lot done in the nearly 2 hours we've been on here, but it is coming. It's all stuff that needs to be done. How about looking? Straight. Still looking really straight, actually. It's hard to do. It's hard to keep it really straight. It likes to eat in one spot and not in another. Two Days says nothing wrong with a new set of hippies. I think it's kind of funny because having that guitar teacher say that and then Jerry say something kind of similar, you might get the wrong impression about what I like to do, or me a little bit, because I know there have been a few times where, you get the long haired guy with the bandana and the guitar t-shirt, and people will make some assumptions about your recreational activities, and that is definitely not me. Which is always funny. But, that's just how it be. Where's the straight edge? My shorter one. It's not this. Working this heel down. Nikki says there's no shame. Right, Nikki? I think so. Nikki F88 says there's no shame in liking Grateful Dead and wearing a bandana. You see, the problem with that is I'm not a huge Deadhead. I don't like them that much. They're fine. And there's probably going to be people who disagree with me. But they're fine. And this is going to sound funny because now it's going to sound like I'm back to being Jerry, but I prefer Jerry Garcia's bluegrass career. Josh unsubbed. Josh, do you even listen to the Grateful Dead? Never heard of them. I'm sure you've seen their emblem thing, the skull with the lightning bolt, and it's red and blue. John Washburn says, man looks at the outward appearance. Yeah, I know, but it's funny to me. That's the other thing that's funny about a YouTube channel, especially when generally if you try to just be good, be a nice guy, be somebody who tries to take care of people, you will get people from all walks, people that don't even agree with each other, who think you identify with them just because you're nice. That's always funny to me, because Jerry was that way. Jerry didn't get real political on camera, and he tried not to, and I very much try not to. I don't try to say anything that leans me one way or another. But generally, if you just be nice and honest and a regular person, people from anywhere will think you identify with them because, oh, well, he's nice, so he has to. Nikki says, JK, I mostly listen to modern Southern rock. Modern Southern rock. But Pun's got a pun. He's just making a joke. But modern Southern rock, is that what is modern Southern rock? There's a topic I always like to get on, is definition of genre. Like, what is this person? The one that always entertains me, and it's slightly an offshoot, is John Denver always gets play on country. Country people are always, oh, it's John Denver. I love John Denver. But John Denver is not country. John Denver was never country. But a lot of people who go, oh, I only listen to country, are perfectly fine with listening to John Denver. It's always funny to me where some people like to put certain genres as for definitions. Because if you ask me what music I like to listen to, and it's not so much what I like to play, but if it's just me just listening to music, it is folk music, and a lot of people don't like it because it's a little abrasive and they're not very good singers generally. John Denver being the exception. But that is what I like to listen to because I like the way it's written. But I don't know, there's some stuff that it's crossover, but it's not what people exactly think. But that got me thinking about it. Modern Southern rock. What's a band that's modern Southern rock? Southern rock is another one that's always funny to me because in my mind, Southern rock is what the Allman Brothers were doing, right? That's where it really got its footing. And there is so much jazz going on in the Allman Brothers, in chords and structures, that probably the other poster child for, like world-renowned, oh, this is a Southern rock band, Leonard Skinner doesn't have. I got to see them live. It was a good show. But that's where I think it was Southern rock. And then you say modern Southern rock. What is it? Tedeschi Trucks is very close because it's Derek Trucks, whose dad was in the Brothers. But Southern rock's a funny one because it's rock and roll, it's country, there's a little bit of jazz, a lot of blues. Nikki says folk is hard to define and largely depend on the regional location. You're right. Because when I say folk, I usually mean American folk, but take traditional mariachi music is folk music for the Mexican people, which has a lot of skill in it if you ever want to listen to it. Folk is a very broad definition. I typically think American folk. John Denver, Bob Dylan, John Prine. John Washburn says I nailed Southwest rock. Southwest rock. See, it's funny that you say Southwest rock because where were the Allman Brothers from? Florida, which isn't exactly Southwest. So South Rock, Southern Rock. Yeah, that's what he meant. But yeah, Southern Rock to me has to have a little bit more of that jazz stuff the Allman Brothers were doing. And if we're talking about modern, Tedeschi Trucks Band is good. I have a hard time listening to a lot of it though. Instrumental work that's over, like 20 minutes long starts to strain on me a little bit. Everybody likes to go. My dad really likes Justin Johnson on YouTube. He plays slide guitar, and he's really good. But I can only take so much instrumental before I need something different. And even the Allman Brothers have a lot of that. Go listen to the live album, which his name is escaping me. But it's like 40 minutes of music, and the last song is 30 minutes long. Fillmore, Live at Fillmore East is a great album, and I really like it, but I can only listen to it once every so often. This is the kind of stuff I could probably talk about for a long time. Another popular question of mine is, what's an album you can listen to beginning to end without skipping any songs? And greatest hits don't count. Everybody loves when I ask them that one. Like beginning to end, first song to last song, what's an album you can listen to all the way through and maybe even just start it over? And greatest hits doesn't count. Because I could listen to the Eagles' greatest hits on repeat, probably, with no issue. But the Dirty Knob says The Wall. That is a perfectly reasonable choice. I am just not that into it. Some Floyd, right? Not that into it, but a perfectly reasonable choice. Charles Peck says any Merle Haggard album. I'm trying to think about country albums that would actually cut it for me. I'm really nostalgic for Alan Jackson's Drive, but it's probably more nostalgia than anything. I see a Santana on there, and that'd be reasonable, but it's going to be a lot of different vocalists, or it's going to be very instrumental, which I'd have a hard time getting through. REM is on. That surprised me. Dirty Knob says REM. I didn't know we had any of those. For me, my number one choice, and it's kind of cheating because I said no greatest hits albums, but it's kind of cheating. Number one favorite album I can listen to beginning to end, start it over, will be MTV Unplugged, Eric Clapton. Beginning to end, over again, probably a third time. One of my favorite albums of all time. That one right there. I see a couple on here. Steven, Wish You Were Here, Opus 1880, Dark Side of the Moon. Good choices. One more from the road. Is that the live Skinnerd album? Texas Flood's really good too. There was another one I had in my mind. And totally changing genres here. it's not gonna come to me now. One of them Van Halen albums. Is it 1984? Great album. Beginning to end, I can listen to the whole thing. No problem. Skip no songs. And that's totally changed genre. Not really what I listen to all the time. Steven says almonds for One More from the Road. Probably. Yeah, that's right. How are we doing here? Dirty Knob says Diver Down. That's Van Halen, isn't it? It's the one with the yellow and the black. Dad was a big Van Halen guy. That's the only reason I am. I'm trying to think of other albums. Beginning to End. Oh, there we go. Steven says Skinner for One More from the Road. Road goes on forever. I was drawing a blank. I had one. Davis says, I hate to admit it, but the MTV Unplugged series of albums are most... Yes, the MTV Unplugged albums are usually very good, or they used to be. Yeah, beginning to end, definitely. Bluegrass. If you haven't listened to it, you should, because it's probably as good as Bluegrass gets. Tony Rice, the Tony Rice Unit, Unit of Measure. Amazing instrumental album, Bluegrass. I can listen to it the whole way through and start over. And it will show off what Bluegrass can be if you're good enough. Not enough love for that one. Because it is all over the place, but it is really good. I'm coming up on 2 hours here. I'm noticing. I wasn't planning on going on over much over 2 hours, so... Nikki says some almond choices there. I really do like Live at Fillmore East. I think is the right one. It's the live album. I really like it. There's some really good stuff in there. And of course I like the Eat a Peaches on there. And I have a hard time liking live albums, but there are a few that are just really good. Nikki says might try Robert John and the Wreck. Steven says I gotta take off. Time to start dinner. Catch up next time. Yeah, I'm not too far behind you. Pentangle. So we're getting lots of good choices on here. Lots of good suggestions for me to go listen to. Oh, I have one recently, a newer one. I gotta go find it though, because it's important and it's in my brain, and I wanted to talk about it anyway because I was thinking about it. But I gotta go find it on my phone. Coulter Wall Little Songs. It's a fairly new album. It just came out on YouTube Music, at least. And Troy sent me one song a couple months ago that was like new on Spotify. Great album, beginning to end. I suggest going to listen to it if you like country music, like country and western music. There's another genre choice that I like to push. Country and western. Very good album. Very good. I see. I like live albums. The Hecklers in the Audience, Van Morrison Live, San Francisco. I have a hard time getting into them because of the audience. I usually much prefer to hear, the song and the song only. But like when we talked about Clapton live, that is probably one of my most favorite albums all time. And Tears in Heaven on the MTV Unplugged is miles better in my mind than the studio version, which has better sound quality. But that's just, in my mind, that's what it is. Josh says he needs to be writing these down. Well, it's a good thing they'll all be here, or at least all the ones that I said, because they'll still be here after the video is over. I'd just like to throw out there that I have suggested a blues album, a rock and roll album, a country album, and a bluegrass album. And when people ask me, what kind of music do you like, they wonder why I have a hard time telling them. I have a hard time picking what kind of music I like. I like lots of kinds. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I think I'm going to call it quits here before too long. It's about time to go start thinking about dinner. But we'll do a little bit longer. Josh asked if there's any genre I can't tolerate. Actually can't tolerate? Probably not. Like, because there's good stuff. If it's talented, then it's usually pretty good. It says EDM. Yeah, one of our friends went to an EDM festival, which, in case you didn't know, is electronic dance music. It's not really up my alley. Not particularly. Although I don't know that I've ever actually heard any EDM. So, I've been saved on that one. I'm getting really close to having this at least even up to where I wanted it, where I wanted to start. Take my block and try to make sure everything here is straight. And that's probably just about where we're going to leave it for today. Of course, I've been filming a regular video on this, so if you're going to want to see the rest of this guitar, it's going to be in a video. It'll probably be a little while, but it should be next. But Clapton on repeat for so long straight, then it disappeared from my truck. I think the kids threw it out the window. Yeah, I played the Unplugged album a lot. It's on my phone. We have the CD, which then made it onto my cell phone, and then once we started doing streaming everything, it's still downloaded on my cell phone. it's one of those things that I know exactly what song is coming next, regardless of where we start in the album. Alright, I think we're looking good. This is going to make this joint really, really loose because we've moved it back. But we should have a better angle than when we started. Yes. I'm actually making it over that bridge. Just barely. So we got some more to do there, but we're better than when we started, which means we're doing good. But yeah, no, I think we're looking good here. That's probably where I'm going to call it. Thanks everybody for joining me. Thanks for having the silly conversations along with the music ones. The rest of this video will be out in a little while. Thanks for joining me on the live stream. I will catch you all later.